Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another SSPI tutorial. Today, we're going to be going through the sort of more intermediate data manipulation, some sort of filtering operations, sticky cells. Let's see what else is on the list. Downloading data from the internet and filtering it, that kind of deal. So, how do we start? So, we are going to do the income share ratio indicator, which is one that requires a little bit of computation, a little bit of filtering. It's not too complicated. And I'm actually going to just pull down the data right now. So let's do wid.world, which is where that data lives. And it will load up for us. And we're going to go to data. And we're going to select the indicators we need, which I happen to know it's the top 10% share and the bottom 50% share. And then we are going to select all countries and regions. And I am going to replicate the data for 2018. So let's retrieve the data. I'm going to change the table structure to something more usable. This is actually a fairly nice site in that it gives you lots of options. Not everybody's like that, but we're going to download the data. Oh. Let's see, did it download? WID data, so data tutorial. All right, and that will be open then, and we're going to upload that data to Google Sheets. So I have this tutorial basics sheet. I will just rename it since I'm going to change the title. And then I'm going to rename this sheet down here to basics, and this should look familiar from the last tutorial. I'm going to get rid of this sheet called sustainability, which we don't need. I'm going to make a new sheet, and I'm going to title it, make it the front sheet. No, it's not letting me do that. Okay, that's weird. And then I'm going to do income share replication. Cool. So we're going to replicate this indicator. Nice. So to start out, we're going to start fresh with our list of countries, and I'll copy these over too. So ultimately, we want to get something that looks like indicator score, normalized score, year, right? So usually we just call it normalized year. And so what are we gonna have to do? We're gonna have to compute the indicator, which we're gonna have to do off to the side over here. And then we're gonna have to normalize it using the gold posting formula. Then we're gonna have to put in the year, which won't be so hard because I think we have 2018 data for everyone, which is great. So I'll just start off there. I just type 2018, drag it down. And we're also going to be doing some rankings today. So we'll rank. And we'll start out there. Okay, so let us open up this data. So we're going to file, import. Then you're going to go find your file on your computer. For me, I think I copied it into my desktop. So WID data, pop in here, and then it looks like it's all right here. And uploading it, WID data, create, insert new sheet is what we're going to do. So we want it in this workbook, and it's going to, don't worry about separator type. If you're using a CSV, it will separate via commas. If you're using a TSV, which is less common, it uses this these days, it'll separate via tabs. But okay, import the data. And that is looking terrible. So what has happened? So it's looking like that might not have been the data we wanted, and this kind of thing will happen all the time. So let's try and put the metadata in, since there was another sheet in there, and maybe that's how they're denoting it. So I'm going to import, upload, see if this is closer to what we want. import data. Oh, it's going to create a new spreadsheet. Also terrible. What is going on there? So we're going to import the data. Import, upload. We're going to share a file from our device. And I happen to know from a couple of trial and errors that the separator here is a semicolon, which is really weird. Probably won't ever have to do that for anything else you import. But let's see if this works. I've done it as a new spreadsheet. I'm going to insert into our sheet, import data, and now we have the data. Perfect. Okay. Delete. So now we have this series name, and we're actually going to get rid of this. We don't need this column. It's not useful for us. So these are the percentiles. So this is saying the 0th percentile to the 50th percentile. It's corresponding to the income share ratio of the bottom 50%. So first thing we're going to do is title these columns so we know what we're working with. And you can see, you might remember from last time, you can do a command shift down, and you can see we actually have 614 values. And we're going to just slide everybody down to the top. Over, down. I'm using command shift to do that. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to drag it down by 1. These operations are a little delicate sometimes, and maybe the better way to do that would be to just insert a column above. So I'll insert a row above. So I'll insert a row above, much easier than dragging the whole thing down by 1. Okay, so we're going to call this country. We're going to call this share or percentiles for now, and we'll deal with this in a second. And then we'll call this year. We'll call this share, because this is the income share. Just income share. Descriptive is often better. Okay, so now let's filter down this data. What is filtering? Well, we don't really want the value for Alabama. That's not relevant to the SSPI, and this data set has a whole bunch of sort of irrelevant values, but it also has values we want, like Australia. How do we decide what we want? Well, we could go row by row, but there are 614 rows. It'll take all day. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to create a column called in SSPI. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to use a set of functions with a data range. So we'll have a data range, this data range, containing our countries. And we'll tab back over to the data. And we'll call this SSPI countries. And what we're going to do is we're going to create something that is true when this value is in this data range and false when this value is not in this data range. And so for this, because Afghanistan's not in here, this will be false, but we go down to something like Australia. Australia is in the SSPI, and so it'll be true. Do we have Argentina in here? Yes, perfect. So that kind of thing. Okay, now how do we do that? So we've imported the SSPI countries into a list. I'm going to call it a range here. And we have this list of countries. And what we want is we want to know for each of these whether or not Afghanistan is in the SSPI, and Africa, and Alabama, and Argentina is, so it should have true, and everything else that's not should have false. And we don't want to have to do this for 614 different values down this list, or 14 different values. And so we're going to use a formula to do it. And the formula we're going to use is the COUNTIF formula. And so we want to count if this range contains this country. And it'll be 0 if it's not, but if we did this, we have COUNTIF this range contains this country. Where are we? We're at Argentina, contains this, and we'll see that's 1. Cool. Argentina's in here, and so we count it. Now, the issue we might run into is we're like, okay, let's drag this formula down. And we're going to drag it through all of them, and we'll just quickly count them all. Job done. Well, not quite. So you notice we have all zeros, even though before Argentina was in there. What's going on? Well, okay, look at what range we're looking at. We're trying to count if Argentina is in this range. Our range is sliding down because when we drag, the ranges slide. We don't want that to happen though. We want to always be looking at H2 to H50 to decide whether or not we're in that range or not. Let's see. How do we do that? So what we can do is use these dollar signs. These are kind of nifty. So we want to fix our cell at H2, fix our cell at H50. And now, if we drag this formula down, it's going to work. And then we'll talk about why it works in a second. So let's just drag it all down. Now you'll see we get some ones. Yeah, so we get ones where Russian Federation is and all that stuff. Cool, so we've got lots of ones now and lots of zeros, and that's going to help us filter out in a second. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, let's discuss how this works. So when I put this dollar sign here, it says, well, if I drag this, don't move my column number or my column letter H. And if I drag this, don't move my column 2. And so for us, using $H, $2 specifies, don't move, I'm stuck at Argentina. And so if we say, what is my cell value at $H, $2, we drag it down, it will be Argentina for everything. Now, let's say we want to fix just a column or just a row. Can we do that? Yes, we can. So I always want to be looking at this top row, but I want to be able to slide across my columns. And so I'm going to say my cell value here is equal to A, fix my row at 2 with a dollar sign. And so now, if I slide down, it's still going to be Afghanistan. We're still looking at row 2, but I can slide across and get the other values from here because we have not fixed which column we're looking at. We're only fixing which row as specified by the number we're looking at. Same thing here. So if we change this to a $A2, that is fixing in place this A. So we're always looking in country, but we can slide down. So if I slide this, it'll go and show you all the countries. But if I slide across like this, I'll always be looking column 2 because I've told Excel I want to always be looking in, or column A rather. Yeah, always looking in column A. And so we're just reducing that over and across. So we can use that to fix a range. And we do that here by looking at $G, $2 to $, yeah, perfect. So that fixes the range. And now to get a Boolean, to get a true or false value, we're just going to say, is this bigger than 0? Yeah, and then we drag that down, we update all our formulas, so we check if they're bigger than zeros. And now, what we can do is we can sort the sheet. So to sort it, we're going to select all these values, and to do that quickly, Command Shift, right arrow, down arrow, nice. So if we hit right click, more cell actions, sort range, which this set of commands will get very familiar to you if you do a lot of this. We say the data has a header row because we have names of the columns, and then it'll say we want to sort by in SSPI, and I'm going to go Z to A. And so what that will do is we'll pull out all the countries that are in the SSPI, and those will all rise to the top, so we can grab them, and then the ones that are not will fall to the bottom, and we will leave them behind. Now, we are going to run into an issue here, which is that we probably don't have all of the SSPI countries just yet. And so it looks like for each one, we want 2 values. And so we can try to count how many we have, right? So we want to count if this is true. And how many do we have? We have 94, but since each country only has 2 values, we only have 47. We're missing 2 countries. So who are we missing? The usual suspects are Korea, which looks like we're missing Korea, so that's a good one, and Slovakia, which, yeah, Slovakia. So these countries have multiple names. It'll be either Slovak Republic or Slovakia. So how can we fix this? Well, I'm going to actually Command Z out of our sort. And I'm going to add these names to the list. So I'm going to add Slovak Republic. Or, okay, we have Slovakia. We have Slovak Republic and not Slovakia. Okay, perfect. I'm going to add, let's look at how they name Korea. So I can just do a Command F, Korea, and they just call it Korea. So I'll put that in. In the SSPI, we call it Korean Republic or Korea Republic. Let's see. Okay, Korea Republic. Yeah, it has different names depending on who you ask. So we're going to just stick those into the list. And now we can extend our formula to include all the way up to G52. And now Korea and Slovak Republic or Slovakia will get included. And then we update our formula and rerun our sort. Update the formula, rerun the sort, and we do that Command Shift, select it all, data, more cell actions, sort range, data has header row, we're sorting it by in SSPI, Z to A, so the trues rise to the top. And now we should see that if we do the COUNTIF, I will do E2 to, I know it's E615. I count if that's true. And divide by 2, and we have all 49 countries in the SSPI. So we've now determined that we have all 49 of them. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to get rid of this data. So we've shown that none of these countries are in the SSPI, and we have all the ones we need. So we're just going to get rid of that. Delete rows. Perfect. So now we've pulled in the raw data, and we've sorted it out. And we can now kind of get rid of these things here because we've done our sorting. We don't need to have that anymore. And then we're going to use some more filtering. So we could do a COUNTIF again. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to filter out because we want to get a ratio between this and this. And maybe we could just do equals this divided by this or something like that. But I'm going to try and just get them all over to another row. And I'm going to show you some more filtering techniques. So COUNTIF, very useful function. COUNTIF this value is equal to, I'm going to use string P0, P50, and you'll see it's turned to 1 and 0, true, false, true, all the way down. And so what we're going to do is do a simple drag over after we sort. So COUNTIF bottom 50. So this is saying this is the bottom 50th percentile. And I just want to get all of these next to each other and all of these next to each other. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to sort the sheet again. So sort range, data, more cell actions, sort range, data has header row down to bottom 50, Z to A. Perfect. And so now you can see all of the bottom 50 countries are grouped together because we're sorting based on this value. We could have probably avoided that entirely and just sorted it based on percentiles now that I think of it, but more practice with COUNTIF is always good. So yeah. Now we can just very quickly drag where it starts at false. And because each one has a pair and we know it's in order, we can just sort it like this. We can get them next to each other. Now, it's not the most elegant solution in the world. I'm sure there's a better way to do it. But now we can call this top 10. Call this, don't need this anymore. Delete that and delete that. And now we can just double check that everybody matches up, and they do. So I can actually get rid of all that information as well as that. So I'm just deleting the columns and rows. And now you can see we've actually got everything we need right where we want it. So this is not income share, but this is bottom 50. And now we take the quotient. And so all we have to do is divide these two and get income share ratios that we want. And so this is income share ratio. We have it for each year. Perfect. So this is sort of how you put together an indicator, and that was some advanced filtering technique. And now we have the information we want. Let's take these and make sure they're just, we'll actually have everybody be 3 significant figures, so it's easier to look at. Nice. Okay. Now we are going to copy this over into our income share replication idea. So let's take a look in here. Income share ratio is in the inequality category of the market structure pillar. So I'm going to go all the way across and see what kind of values we've got to make sure we're actually getting the right ones. And it looks like they're actually a little different, but that's probably because the data has been updated. Let's see, WID data coming out of here, 3851. Maybe quite a bit different, actually. This is why you have to go back and update your indicators, because the methodology for the paper changes and they give you new values. So wouldn't worry about that right now. We've just pulled down the data again, so trust our process. And then we're going to pull this over. So I'm going to copy these. SSPI basic, intermediate, indicator score. So you see, we've lost that because we didn't paste special. So I'm going to Control-Shift-V or paste special values only because we were pasting a column that was generated by a formula. Perfect. And then I'll just tab these over so they're nice looking. And yeah, you can see we've generated that. Now let's talk goalposting. So our goalposts from the indicator table for this, which we might need to update based on new data, are 0.2 and 1.25. And so let's use this idea of sticky references to make different goalposts. And so let's do upper goalpost, lower. Perfect. So we're going to record that value in this column here so that we have a lower goalpost of 0.2 and an upper goalpost of 1.25. And we are going to score the countries using the normalized formula score. So the way we do that in Excel is we do the min of our computed score and 1, so that if the score is greater than 1, using the formula, we actually cap it out at 1. And then we do the max of it and 0 for the same reason that if the score is less than 0, we actually cap it down at 0. And then we compute the goalpost score. And so let's just do it so it's indicator score minus the lower goalpost, which we have in D52, divided by the difference, or that's the upper goalpost, right? Lower, upper, lower is in 53, minus the lower goalpost, divided by upper minus lower. D52 minus D53. So you can see Argentina doesn't do too well here. Pretty low score, which we can see it's pretty close to the lower goalpost. And if Argentina had scored, let's say 0.15, what would we expect? Well, it should be lower than the lower goalpost, so it should be 0. Formula is working. And if it's higher than the upper goalpost, let's say it's 1.5, it's 1. Perfect. So the formula is working, and if it's like getting close to the upper goalpost, but not quite, it should be like 0.99. So like 1.0, it's close to the upper goalpost of 1.25, should be like 0.99 something, 952. Yeah, perfect. So I'm going to just Control-Z, Control-Z. Now, what have we done wrong, or what have we missed? Well, we haven't made our cells sticky. So if we start dragging, you'll see very quickly we get a divide by 0 error because we're now dividing. Here, we started dragging without sticking our cells in place, but we know how to do that. We just use the dollar signs. And so we want to stick to D53 because that's always our upper goalpost here. And we want to stick to D50, or this is always our lower goalpost. D52 is always our upper. And so if we stick those and then start dragging, we will compute. So dragging down, C will move, you know, our column that we're looking to, C3, C4, C5 will move, but the others won't. Perfect. And now I remember that Czech Republic scored really well. Let's just check that they still do. Yeah, fairly good. It's interesting. These scores have all gone down. Hopefully I collected it correctly, but let's not worry about that quite yet. It looks like it's all fine and I pulled down the right data. So let's now sort the sheet and get the rankings. So this is an important thing you'll have to do on the SSPI. Again, we're using this idea of sorting ranges. So data, view more cell actions, sort range, data has header row. We want to sort it by either the normalized score or the indicator score. I usually do the indicator score in case you have some capped countries that the indicator score will probably be different, even though the capped score might be the same. Okay, so I sort by indicator score and I go Z to A because the highest ranked country should have, or the top ranked country, the #1 country should have the highest score. So you want to go highest to lowest. Sort, excellent. Slovak Republic does well. Okay, maybe that's what I was remembering. So anyway, we want to add the rankings. How do we do that? Well, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you put enough of them in, usually about 3, Excel will figure out that you're trying to add a bunch of them and you can just start dragging. That's kind of nice. So you don't have to type all of them in by hand, but now you've got the rankings. And then if you sort it back, data, sort range, data has header row, country A to Z. Now we've got everything back and the ranking, maybe call this ranking, are all in. So that's how you do a basic sort of like indicator with some computations, maybe some filtering involved. So that's how you set that up. And I think that's all I wanted to cover for this tutorial. We covered importing some data using the data upload kind of thing. Maybe if we wanted to download this as a CSV, we could do that like this. We could say, okay, we want to download 2012 Google Sheets tutorials as a CSV. So what I'm downloading, checking. Income share replication, yeah. So let's say I wanted to call this income share 2-10-10 income share replication, and that'll be a .csv, and I would download that to wherever. I can then download that. So CSVs are super useful so that someone else can just pull in your clean data. Doesn't have to worry about cleaning it themselves. And you can also copy this over because this is now ready to input into the SSPI tables like this. So yeah, that's all I wanted to cover in this tutorial. It's sort of some more advanced uses of Google Sheets, and definitely the COUNTIF function is super useful. Sticky ranges, sticky cells, and sort, which you're always sorting sheets when you're doing anything in the SSPI. So I think that's about it for this one. I'll see you all in the next tutorial.